Hello and thanks for staying on LN247. This is Politics Now. My name is Morno Bala Gubo. We've got quite a show for you. Well, we will start our conversation tonight with West African politics. Let's give you a rundown of some of our talking points. We'll look at the mixed reactions trailing Tinubu's re-election as ECOWAS chairman. There's so much to unpack. And also Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso military leaders signed a new pact. And we'll talk about proposed ECOWAS single currency. And of course, joining us on the conversation, hopefully if he's able to be in time with us, is Ambassador Austin Osagie, who is a political analyst and a UN ambassador and public affairs analyst. But we'll also be talking about Samoa agreement controversy. Well, I think the word controversy should be removed because the air has been cleared on that. But let's give you a rundown of our talking points. Federal government justification of signed agreement solely for economic development. And then fact or fiction, did federal government agree to LGBTQ deal? And what Nigerian stands to benefit from $150 billion straight component, which is a part of the Samoa agreement. And with us in the studio is Dr. Aliyu Ilyas, a political economist. He is a supply chain expert and development expert. Thank you so much, Doctor, for being with us on set.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Okay, so let's break down the conversation. We will start with ECOWAS. Of course, President Bola Tinubu has been re-elected as the chairman of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, about 1 year after he took over the leadership of the regional bloc. In his acceptance speech, President Tinubu said he would focus on consolidating the values of democracy and upholding the interest of the regional body. Here is what he said.
It is my singular honor to once again welcome you to Abuja on behalf of the government and people of Nigeria. On the occasion of the 60th ordinary session of the Authority of Head of State and Governments of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. I would like to extend my deepest appreciation to all of you for the continued support you have extended me over the past year since I took over as the chair of ECOWAS. Let me also recognize the presence of our brother, President Bassirou Faye of Senegal, who had joined our rank as the newest member of the authority. Allow me to further extend the warm congratulations to the government and people of the Republic of Senegal for their steadfastness in the consolidation of democratic governance. The recently concluded presidential election has been widely adjudged as free, fair, transparent, and credible. This achievement is a testament to our region's commitment to the principle of democracy, good governance, and rule of law. Excellencies and state government, distinguished guests, we have convened this ordinary session to once again review the situation in our region. We are aware of the enormous challenges, including terrorist activities and violent extremism, threatening to spread from Sahel region towards the coastal states, especially those that witnessed constitutional changes of government. The decision of the three Saharan countries of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger to withdraw from ECOWAS has also been noticed. Our partners are carrying out critical intervention in countries affected by humanitarian crisis. Excellencies, head of state and government, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me underscore that a peaceful and secure society is essential for achieving our potential. as we move to operationalize the ECOWAS Standby Force, ESF, in combating terrorism, I must emphasize that the success of this plan requires not only strong political will, but also substantial financial resources. We must, therefore, ensure that we meet the expectations and recommendations set forth by our ministers of defense and finance in order to counter the insecurity and stabilize our region. Member states must make extra commitment on providing resources for stabilizing the region. To this end, I urge ECOWAS to leverage on the capability of the Nigerian National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, which is widely acknowledged as one of the best on the continent.
Now, do recall that Tinubu's first stint as the ECOWAS chair was characterized by coups in the region. Military juntas have taken over power in Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger Republic. While the regional bloc imposed sanctions on these countries, these nations left the body and vowed not to return. Now, these military leaders of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have hailed a new signed treaty as a step towards greater integration between three countries, and in the latest showing of their shift away from traditional regional and Western allies. But the question is, can it work? Now, during a summit in the regional capital of Niamey on Saturday, the three leaders signed a confederation treaty that aims to strengthen mutual defense pact announced last year, which is called the Alliance of the Sahel States, AES. And I would also talk about the issue of the economy, the state of the economy in these West African nations, including Nigeria. You look at the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Adun, who says Nigeria is committed to the implementation of a single currency for the economic community of West African states. And the minister said the single currency, ECO, will foster economic growth and development in the West African region. Well, Dr. Ali, good to have you on set with us. I mean, it's just been a surprise for so many people, because when the news broke last night, I was asking myself a question, okay, is this an award for President Tinubu's performance, or there is no other person to chair the ECOWAS? But what was your reaction?
Well, when I got to see it, in fact, I haven't gotten the feelings that it's almost a year already that was in power. So I had to check the dates and look at what happened, the coup and everything. But I think it's more of consolidation. So they think what they have actually have been planned to do, there's need for them to consolidate it. And how can they consolidate it to make sure that they still give him the I wouldn't say is because during this period there's a lot of issues that even show weakness on the part of the ECOWAS. Perhaps when they now bring out what they want to achieve going forward, and I'll see where maybe you could use that to actually pay the shortfall of that one. But you look at it beyond that. You recall that even ECOWAS secretariat is in Nigeria. Nigeria is contributing over 50% to ECOWAS, and our president is like president of ECOWAS. If you look at it from that level, so if at all they have planned to remove him, it will be pretty difficult, because it will amount to withdrawal of what we are giving to them, amount to taking a lot of challenge. Perhaps if there's any trouble in ECOWAS, we can actually take and consider some country. Imagine Chad, Niger having issue. Niger can absorb and support them. But if Niger have issue, which country in West Africa actually absorb Nigeria?
We always talk about the state of democracy in the continent, and when you look at West Africa, these francophone nations have made the decision to leave, which is something that you can't really force a nation to do, because they are the proponents who okay, let's free ourselves, of external forces and all of that. But when you look at how Tinubu has handled some of these challenges, that has plagued him, they didn't just appear when he came into to be as the chair. But how would you assess what he's done so far? Do you think he was helpless? Where did you think he needed to, do a lot more to perhaps sway these other our brothers and sisters from other countries to still stay in the bloc?
Right. For me, I think it's actually a premature position that he has taken. You have 4 years to use your tenure, and the first 2 months, I think he emerged as that he take over at May,
yes.
And by July he was giving ECOWAS. It's quite, he doesn't really have the feet to actually understand what actually happened, how we handle it. Perhaps he has not been president before, but he's not in his second term that you have.
No, but he always says, I've ruled Lagos. Look at my achievements in Lagos.
There's a difference between being a president and being a state under a country. So for me, I think it was, the decision was some, and perhaps it appeared that there's other international hands in the what actually play, because
no, there is actually, based on what the agitations from these nations.
It has a calculated plan from the Niger especially, because they know Buhari was the president, and Buhari is very close to them. The coup would have come during, but so Buhari is out of it. They say, this is the right time to actually do. But so far, I think as a president, and perhaps you also mentioned about Francophone. If you look at West Africa, we are dominated by Francophone. Right, I think it's only 3 countries also that is English: Sierra Leone, Ghana, and Nigeria. So if you look at about over 10 of them, they have the capacity. So when we say they actually, we still have other Francophone with us, Côte d'Ivoire, other among them, Senegal, they are still with us. But the thing is, if you look at these 3 that actually left, they are being ruled by military now. So they have common agitation, and I think that's why they are coming together.
So those who are bashing President Tinubu over his poor performance in alleviating some of the major challenges in the region, do you think they are justified, or they are just making too much noise?
I think it's much more of noise, because there are other problems that have been there before. By the time he came, he inherits those problems. So but for me, going forward, I think this is now time to judge him. He had the experience expected. He has gathered momentum as expected. So we expect Tinubu to show what actually he can do during this next 1 year. And for me, I think maybe because of the presidency, I think 1 year is too short for such a position. So that's what I think anyway. But for me, I think it is time for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to justify. Perhaps I look at some of their plan and what they want to achieve. I saw single currency. In fact, if Tinubu can achieve only that, he would have break all the record. You know why? We are the most populous in West Africa. We have the best economy in West Africa. So if he achieved that, it's to the benefit of Nigeria. Perhaps before we have this after rectified African trade, free trade area, it would have helped us, because it would have boosted our economy in West Africa, and Nigeria would take lead because we have the population and we have the money.
Okay, now we'll come back to the issue of the eco currency.
Right.
But I want us to talk about the politics of it, because when you look at some of the people who are saying, okay, President Tinubu has not been doing much as he should have done in terms of ECOWAS affairs with regards to, being an example in terms of how our elections work. Because when you look at some of those who are very critical of the president, especially when it comes to West African affairs and politics, is the fact that, okay, they didn't like the way the Nigerian election, most especially the 2020 general election, they didn't like the way it panned out. So they feel offended, and they are like, oh, how can he be a good example? Why, if we don't see the dividends of democracy, why would other countries even want to, be under a democratic form of government?
Well, I actually have a dream too, that someday, the way the election of UK just went, we have an election in Nigeria or in Africa that will go like that.
Is it possible?
No violence, no noise,
no ballot snatching,
no toggery, everything. And even transition, that's even the beauty of it. Look at the transition from one president to the other. No ceremony, no for anything.
No social media agitation.
I think that's where we want to get to. However, it will not be fair for you to say you demand that from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because he's also a function of that process too. Remember, he just assumed office. So it is now that we'll now see what he's going to do going forward, because you cannot.
But as somebody who wants to enhance fair play, because most people who are with that ideology or with these agitation about the state of how Nigeria conducted the 2023 general election was the fact that, I mean, President Tinubu is basically the leader of the APC. You know, he spearheaded Buhari's, campaign and all of that. He went all out to campaign for Buhari, solidify the North and the West, that secured the vote that brought Buhari into power. So it's not like he's an independent candidate who just was like the face for candidate, under the APC. So he was more of like a backbone. And so these people seem not to excuse him, of the fact that, okay, I mean, he played a key role in terms of perhaps some will go as far as, using his influence on the government of the time, that is President Muhammad Buhari, to get, the right justices in place and to ensure all the all the political tools necessary to win the election at all costs.
I would not subscribe to that 100%, because it is when you're in power. There's a difference between power and being rich or being head of a political party. It is now that he has the power, and there's I've not seen it justified that he actually rigged himself to the, that's why we have.
No, of course, the courts has
the court have said
given its verdict. I'm just talking about the people who are raising these agitations, that we need to set a standard for these nations not to leave.
I'd like to join those people now to challenge President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that going forward, it's quite easy. Ondo election is coming. Edo election is coming. We would like to justify or judge him in this area. How well will you do? Will there be fair play? Let's even come to Edo. Edo have 3: PDP, APC, and perhaps we won't have PDP ruling in Edo already. So that's where we'll see now if it's actually justified. Then we'll still go to Ondo, right, and see what actually happened there. So, but for me, I don't think we should judge him with the past. Let's just look at him going forward. And our electoral process is a big process. Look at Senegal. That's another thing we need to reset. Is it up to 2 months? A unknown, or will I say, let me know is unknown, someone that is not popular, upturning, defeating incumbents. Is that not what just happened? And a young, vibrant person.
And that's the kind of democracy and conduct of elections we want to see in the country.
Where there will be a fair play. We hope to see it going forward.
All right. So let's talk about these alliance now from these Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. How economically will they be able to survive? Because I keep seeing that the key bane for them is security, which I know is very, very important, because if there is no security, then food cannot be secure, that is readily available. But the economic challenges in these nations, is baffling, and they don't seem to, have a kind of plan for that. They're just after, let's secure our country and let's get France away, let's move away from ECOWAS. I mean, do you think it is sustainable?
I think it's a temporary romance from 3 of them, because very soon the people in that country, each country, will agitate for democracy. So by the time we are able, maybe with the help of ECOWAS, AU, and maybe global community, by the time one of them became
agitate for democracy, when the people actually, supported the coups that were successful.
It will be tiring at a particular point, because if you look at even these 3 people coming together, their aim is to really get back at France. Maybe policy of assimilation. We are in what do I call it? Our colonial leaders have actually freed Nigerians and other English-speaking countries. But for them, they see that policy of assimilation. Perhaps we still have some country like Paul Biya of Cameroon. We know who is still enjoying them. So those people are actually trying to get back at France. And remember, they are getting their own support from actually Russia as well. So there's a global coloration to it. But the point, they want to come back to democracy. If going by what he's saying, one of them is the Burkina Faso president, who is actually doing well, as people are saying. If he actually follow his plan that he's going to hand over, by the time he hand over, the romance will reduce, but because we cannot compare democracy to military government. So I think it's just a temporary thing. Meanwhile, I also like West Africa to also show big brother. You know, why they are displaying their own attitude, they should also say we are embracing you. We're not saying you should go, because it's not possible three of them.
Now, you're talking about, Nigeria playing a big brother role, which
West
I believe,
Africa
okay,
itself.
West Africa itself, that is every other person outside these nations. Now, when you look at, what played out in Chad election, you have someone who, is connected to the military, coming to power. So that's could also play, because when you look at Niger, these countries, keep saying, okay, we're going to propose when we will, transition back to a democratic government, which we may not see the light of the day in, for now at least. But I mean, the ideals they hold on to, and they, take advantage of the fact that they have power, and then you're the military leader. Then when you transition to democratic governance, you still want to be the face, of democracy. I don't know how deceptive that sounds to you.
I think it's a very funny thing whereby but we have seen people who actually did it and they did well. Like it is now I think they did well. Libya, Muammar Gaddafi. That's how it actually came. So that's what most of them want to do. So it's possible the Burkina Faso man is also having that intention, because he's doing well. Say, okay, by the time I put on my agbada and what have you, I also do it. But the fact remains that in the long run, because I think it's only Burkina Faso that is not landlocked. The two, like Niger and Guinea, I think those ones are landlocked. So it's really economically difficult for
them to survive.
But the thing, like I said, is a temporary thing. That is, with time, but I want the West Africa to keep playing their role. Still consider them in some things. With time, they will still come back to join, because the world, there is tension. If you're across the world, it's not easy. You see Ukraine, you see Israel, you see different. So it's not a time to actually call for maybe fights. We must find a way to really manage them very well.
Now, let's talk about the eco currency. Which is something that the Minister of Finance, Wale Edun, has said they're going to do. This is not the first time that it's been. It's been in the pipeline for some time. But considering the state of our naira, I was listening to a conversation early this morning before we came on set, and they were talking about the fact that Nigeria's naira is struggling. So how would an eco currency work, and of what benefit will it have for countries in the region?
Right, like you rightly mentioned, I think eco currency has been proposed over time. But the thing is, the problem of eco currency is not even Nigeria; it is the francophone countries, because they have highest number. They have more numbers in terms of when
in the region. Yes.
When it comes to even votes, should we adopt eco currency? No. Yes. And perhaps remember, even the France is telling them that you have uniform currency already. You should just consume the West Africa. You know why? Most of those francophone are using currency that have a relationship with France already. So I think for Nigeria to actually achieve it, we must go extra mile, right? But that we have a weak currency is not a yardstick. By the time eco currency comes around, I'm sure the value will even be more, because you have more people spending. Look at euro today. Euro have its own level. In fact, it's even value more than most currency. You can't compare it to pounds and what have you. But the thing is, we can still try to make sure it works. If you want to make it work, I think it's possible. So we can just we have to sacrifice, like we always sacrifice. Like I said, Nigeria is expending more than 50% for ECOWAS. So we should have our own say to an extent. And I'm sure Ghana, Sierra Leone will be in support. We just need to convince maybe 3 more francophone countries.
Now, talking about the monies Nigeria is spending, I recall yesterday the president was talking about the fact that other countries need to contribute more more. And, those are some of the complaints that I recall, Donald Trump had with the UN, and was like, okay, why is the United States, contributing more than Asia and the UK combined together? So, and these nations, if they're able to contribute more into the funding of the financing of the bloc as a whole, do you think it will make it faster for them to move into, adopting the eco currency? Because it goes beyond Nigeria. So even though Nigeria has a political will, other nations have to be on board with it.
Well, the issue of spending, I think we have to continue to spend, because we only need to take advantage of the money we are spending. Because if you look at USA, they are taking advantage of their, they take a lot of decisions, they veto a lot of things that, if they want to go to any war and they will just find their way and make decisions. Just need France and maybe China, then they move. But in Nigeria's case, are we actually maximizing that level of expenditure we are expending to survive? Then for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I think successive presidents have been trying to make sure they come and spend more. But even during Buhari was saying the same thing. But I doubt, because they will tell you don't have the capacity. But if you look at our numbers, apart from that, we are in Nigeria, we also are in all those countries, and it's not a small number. And that's why the eco currency is going to be of benefit to us, because we have more Nigerians trading in Cote d'Ivoire, trading in Sierra Leone, Gabon, and all these other countries. So we should do more. Perhaps if we even want to do more, by now we should be infiltrating these people with our culture, a lot of things. That's what we should maximize, so that we will not spend more. I don't think we can reduce what we are spending.
Now let's look at the Bretton Woods institutions. You have the IMF, World Bank, and the likes. What's going to be their reaction to, an eco currency in West Africa if it works? Because these institutions, continue to have, Africa at their beck and call with loans, and we'll talk about the Samoa agreement in a short bit. But how do you think? Is it something they are open to?
Well, for me, if you ask me, I think they will not be open to it. A phone call will just tell President.
And is that why it has not worked?
That's part of it. Majority. A phone call will have told President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, you cannot continue to move in that trajectory. If you do it, we will withdraw this, we will withdraw that. We won't support all the West African countries. And remember, other West African countries rely majorly on those aid and grants. So because they want that grant, they will say, okay, we are not going to be part of. So that's the major problem. It's not even these countries. It is the what comes from Bretton Woods institution, like especially IMF, because World Bank, IMF, they will tell you that before we can give you money, this is our conditionalities, and you must actually meet up those. And that's what we are actually softening up to now. Removal of software subsidy. We have subsidy even from the electricity. It's part of their own policy that they tell us that we need to implement so that we can actually survive our economy.
So now, based on what you have said, when you look at this new alliance and this new pact by these countries in the Sahel, the three countries, they are partnering with Russia. We are aware that Wagner forces, have come to take over base and to help with security and all that. And we also know that Russia is not very happy with the likes of IMF, World Bank, and the global the G8 countries who help to finance the activities, economic activities in the world, which they've tried to break away by having what they call BRICS. Of course, you're aware of that. So now those countries, would you say that they are justified to want to break away from Western influence? Because if you're leaving France, you've got to have a new partner.
Right.
So
I think
in that light,
it's beyond what we are seeing. There's what is called pipeline diplomacy. Now, pipeline diplomacy is what is actually causing the problem. Right, so what do I mean by pipeline diplomacy? Nigeria wants to pass a gas pipeline through Niger, then to Europe. But Russia knew very well that if Nigeria is allowed to take a pipe through Niger to Europe, to Germany, they are going to have issues, because the strength of Russia in Europe is that they have the gas, and you need to come to them if you need anything in that area. So Russia is now saying, Niger, don't allow and overthrow this president, because if you overthrow this president, that is the what's his name that left, he's allowing that Bazoum. So they said Bazoum must go, so that the new guy will not allow that pipe. So they have that thing have been stopped by now, because it's a very international, it has international dimensions. So for Russia to support Niger, it doesn't come with free legis. They have interest and they are protecting that interest. So they don't want that pipeline project to go, because once it goes, the power of Russia will reduce in that area, and America and other West will have much more power. So this Sahel you are seeing, it's not a decision they are making on their own. There's a backing of other international world powers, I would say, and that's why they look for unipolar. They are avoiding unipolar for bipolar, because if you allow US to determine everything, Russia knew quite well that they won't survive, and that's why they are trying to break the world and say it is a bipolar, that we also have Sahel in Africa that we can also work with, so we have our own strength. So if you look at all this, there are international politics that must be studied very well by our president. Now, president by our responsibility now is also the president of West Africa.
Do you think the presidents in West Africa understand, just as you have explained, do they understand the dynamics of what is actually going on to be able to make a very informed decision?
Right. The problem is that the poverty in Africa is our problem, that we cannot stand on our own, because they actually know what is actually happening, but they want to be on the side. Perhaps if Nigerians say, can Nigerians now forsake US, we can't do without them. So if you can do without them, we would have said, okay, this is our own position. And you see, when the Tinubu was quick to remove power, remove this, remove that from Niger, you see the backlash. We have to restore it back, because other Africans are saying, no, don't listen to the international only, consider these people. So these are the things that so I think it's issue of what?
Yeah.
Of politics of global community.
And that tells a lot. So now, because when you talk about the issue of these nations that have removed themselves from West Africa, there is the question of right and wrong. Who is right and wrong? Now, I think the wrong that most people would agree with will have to do with the fact that it's the military and it's not under a democratic governance. But when you look at really in the long run what each party stands to gain, how would you define, okay, who is right and who is wrong?
I think we should say our leaders are wrong. I think that's where I will go. When I say leader, I wouldn't say maybe African leaders, because if you are having a democratic governance and people are not benefiting from that democracy, it becomes a very troublesome issue that people will be agitating for an alternative. I think that's what actually happened, because if you look at all these military guys, they will say it's because there's poverty in the land, that is why they want to come and solve problem. And perhaps if you see Niger, when they overthrow the democratic, see they are jubilated, they are on the street happy. Look at Burkina Faso, they are saying they are even enjoying more than the democratic.
Which was why I asked the question.
So now for me, I think African elected presidents should make sure they always do the right thing and also shun their personal, aggrandizement. Because if you look at most of them, once they come to that power, the benefit, the enjoyment of that power has consumed them. That they've forgotten that people that elected them actually deserve a better governance. Look at what the Burkina Faso man is just trying to do. Look at how people are appreciated. And that's also bring about a lesson to Nigeria. We must make sure as leader understand the level of poverty Nigerians are going through. The purchasing power is dwindling day by day, and most of our government, look at Ruto. Ruto is sacrificing now, having seen what happened on the street. Ruto is now saying we are cutting salary of ministers. Ruto is now saying I'm cutting salary of my first lady's office. He's trying to do a lot of, so we should just sort sacrifice from the Nigerian government as well. This will take us, will make us to appreciate our 25 years uninterrupted democracy. So it's important that the well-being of people is very, very key. At this point in time, we're governments talking about social infrastructure like health, education, should have moved past those things. Just a policy will change those things.
You know, it's very important that you said those key things because, you know, Nigerian leaders and African leaders in general seem to have that disconnect because they don't actually live in the world of Nigerians. I mean, you go in your fleet cars and then you get into your AC, you listen to your ADCs and all that. But if you don't really listen to the people, but thank God for the help of social media, which I think helped fuel the Kenyan protest against the finance bill in that country. But our leaders, you know, in this country would always seem to say that, you know, people, these are critics, these are people who are not happy they are being used, you know, but they don't really see the point that they are trying to make, and which I feel that if leaders will actually listen to what you have said, we can actually make a democratic form of governance, you know, attractive to these nations. Exactly. Of course, you're still watching our politics now. We'll take a quick breather. Of course, when we come back, we'll talk about the Samoa agreement. And of course, Dr. Aliyu is still with us on set. So just stay with us. We'll be right back. Glad to know you're still watching politics now. Well, it's time to talk about the Samoa agreement controversy. We told you earlier that we'll look at federal government's justification of the signed agreement, which they said it's solely for economic development, and also clarifications. Fact or fiction, did federal government agree to the LGBTQ deal in the proposed agreement, and what Nigeria stands to benefit from the 150 billion trade component in the deal? Well, the federal government has said over the weekend that the signing of the Samoa agreement was done in the best interest of the country. And of course, the budget minister, Atiku Bagudu, on Saturday explained that Nigeria signed the Samoa agreement with the European Union to boost food security and inclusive economic development, amongst other vital areas. Now, in a report which was published by the Daily Trust, which they have taken responsibility of, according to a post that was released last night. They claim that the federal government signed the agreement with clauses requiring Nigeria to endorse the rights of lesbians, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex people. The agreement, generally referred to as the Samoa Agreement, was signed on the 28th of June at the Organization of Africa, Caribbean and Pacific States Secretariat in Brussels in Belgium, and details of the agreement indicated that the partnership is between the EU and its member states on one hand and members of the OACPCS on the other. Now, the federal government says it will file a complaint against Daily Trust newspapers to the newspapers' proprietors and the Association of Nigerian NPAN over its publication on the so-called agreement. Now, from over the weekend, of course, there's been new revelation which LN247 has gathered from reliable report from the Premium Times that, contrary to what was reported in the sections of the media, there are no LGBT clauses in the new Samoa agreement that was signed by Nigeria. And of course, that brings clarity to the story that was reported earlier by the Daily Trust. And the Daily Trust has taken responsibility, and they have said that they will apologize to the federal government. And also, they said that they did not present any clause in the agreement. Rather, the Premium Times reported that they did not present any clause in the agreement that mandates LGBT rights beyond quoting the opinion of one Mr. Kwoswisu, despite also quoting the administrative secretary of the NSCIA as saying the council did not find any same-sex marriage in the draft shared with by the government before signing the agreement. And in addition, the interpretation of Mr. Okwowusi, the Lagos-based lawyer whose opinion article the media outlets relied on for their reporting, is quite misleading. misleading. So there you have it there. So there's no controversy again. So Doctor, thank you for still being with us. It's been quite a week, I would say, talking about last week since the report came out and the mixed reactions here and there over this deal. Now, let's talk about the Samoa agreement. I'm sure you must have studied it closely. The federal government says it's to help boost food security in the country and also to aid economic development as a country. Now, we were seeing $150 billion loan attached to it, and I know economics like yourself are very skeptical of some of these loans. So can you help us just break it down?
Right. I think first and foremost, to talk about Samoa agreement, I think, the fact is that the way the Samoa agreement itself was signed was somehow because it was signed outside Nigeria by a diplomat, and perhaps most African countries have withdrawn earlier before from the signing. But I think there's an education I took from these issues. Now, when you hear gender, now it's beyond male and female. Anything gender now, because that's where I interpret it. So when you want to talk about male and female, use sex, female sex or male sex. Because when you say gender now, it's as involved LGBTQ.
Yes.
So when you say gender rights has included them as well. But I'm happy that Daily Trust has actually withdrew, because when I saw it, I have to go through it. But I actually listened to a lawyer who is the chairman of NBA West Africa or so. I listened to him critically, and I think we also have to sound a warning, a caution to the federal government. We should not be rushed to all these agreements as it were, because we know clearly that there's always a conditionality attached to every loan you want to collect.
Even the normal app, like let's say your social media app, when you download it, before you sign up, you will see a long terms and conditions. But we don't read it, and we just sign. But you can't do that with governance.
So, but I will appreciate Daily Trust to an extent, because they actually bring our knowledge to what's actually happening, and it has created a consciousness for even other things that we need. There's need to read those things very well. But it's also show the appalling state where that we go cap in hand looking for loans. Because the opinion and the reason Bagudu is actually giving is the economic benefit therein. Then, in terms of loan, Nigeria has actually started going above 50%, 50% of our GDP. You have to look at borrowing debt to GDP. Nigeria is now moving across 50% in terms of GDP. Then, we always talk about revenue to debt, and we always say that if you look at our revenue, maybe because for subsidy removal now we can still be in a big buoyant, it's not good. So for me, I think we should go beyond borrowing to solve our food crisis. We are agriculture economy, so to say. Ideally, what's supposed to take over our front burner of Nigeria economy should be agriculture. But you wonder that even in the release of NBS, it was service economy that is leading. Service economy is leading beyond manufacturing and agriculture. So we should also look inward beyond borrowing to make sure that we actually encourage our farming, maybe mechanized farming, because the major thing they are saying now is because of the money itself. But I think Daily Trust itself actually look to review. According to them, they say it's what somebody actually bringing. But for me, I think government is also quick to say they want to sue the Daily Trust. It's because it was, if you look at the power government used to actually fight to prove themselves, they are even looking at it from the opposition. But it's a normal thing for a Nigerian to actually look at things.
And I mean, the media outlet even had to defend itself, that they've covered successive administrations before now, and they've tried to be fair and balanced.
So there's an issue that we shouldn't be saying online, however, but there's a particular pattern this government is actually looking at some media house. They are beginning to look at some media house as anti-government already, and they have actually, so anything that is coming from those media outlets, they believe that they are actually trying to bring them down. I think government should, and if you look at this government so far, the way they handle journalists, it's not welcoming as it is. So I think they should also have that caution themselves as in federal government. Because if you look at our Minister of information. He's also a media house owner. I'm sure he owns a particular I know he owns a print media and a broadcasting media.
So why do you want to limit free press?
So I expect him to actually be a middle person that will actually see to this issue. So, but I think they should. This is just 1 year of their.
And nobody is above mistake, but I think the key thing is to look at the heart of why that article was published, which is to educate Nigerians.
Perhaps,
before now, who knew of any Samoa agreement?
If you even look at Samoa agreement itself, the process is somehow. Most African countries are withdrawing from it before, including Nigeria. So the way they sign it in a particular country and it was signed by an ambassador, these are what raised the up. Because by the time I read through, I say definitely there's things, because the whole Africa said they should remove a particular clause before they can sign. Perhaps maybe that's what they have removed before they now sign. But when they remove it, the media did not involve them, so they will be aware that this thing has actually been removed. So, but going forward, I think the information is there. The media house will know their level, and the government will also be conscious of what they sign.
Now, let's talk about the issue of loans and what the government is doing about it. Because I think that the major issue is not even getting the loan, but it's what does the loan accomplish?
Right.
Because when you track back to most of the loans that Nigeria has collected, lots of money. But how does it translate in impacting the public? Can you just talk on that?
Right. You see, borrowing is not a bad thing, because as an economist, for us to borrow is not a bad thing, provided what you are borrowing for is what actually works. Let's look at the past administration. There's what is called sukuk loan. If you look at sukuk loan, it's beneficial because they use it to fix road. You see the sign. They didn't even give them. It's a project-tied loan, right? So, but you can't collect loan and say, baby, I want to use it for humanitarian purpose, and it won't have. Look at what we're actually saying now. President wants to give 100,000 household per each state, 100,000, and that's about 33.7 million Nigerians, including FCT. If you look at such, if you get loan to do that, that's a wrong one, because even as an economist, we don't support you giving people money. If you invest like 1 trillion, government is just releasing for palliative. Imagine if it is released on infrastructure for CNG, and every 774, every local government, 774 local government gets a structured CNG that we can all change our vehicle to CNG. Or imagine the channel it to agriculture produce, not like the anchor borrower that is much more of a political farmers. These are what a structured loan that will be tied, no project type, because this one is also vague. It's also vague.
Because you listen to the justification from the federal government. For you, it sounds as if it doesn't make any sense at all.
Right. If you ask me, it's that means you are going into that agreement because of the loan itself, and that's why it must be self-sufficient to a large extent. So we won't jump at every loan and manage the conditionalities. You see, that's why Nigerians are actually complaining, because you want to get loan. You understand? You are now taking the conditionalities without checking the pros and cons, and that's what the lawyer, I think, is trying to actually, because the lawyer mentioned a lot of things that actually relate. I watched him on TV where he was ruling out those things. I said he should be invited at any point in time, that there's a deal that is not transparent enough. But for loans, in as much as we want development in Nigeria, let us always look at project-tied loan. Break it down. What are you going to use this to do? If you are buying so tractor, let it be tied with that. So we also want to urge the international community, even the Bretton Woods, if you want to give us loan, any loan that does not really have a project attached, please don't give us, because we are becoming indebted.
But do you think they care about that?
Well, they wouldn't care. That's why I said our leaders who went ahead to sign it should care about us, because look at our loan, about 121 trillion as at now. It's not a good position for Nigeria.
But this agreement has been signed now, so the government say that this is what it's going to be used for. The question is that will it be used for what it said it will be used for?
Well, government is government. They can veer at any point in time. They will just go to National Assembly. But I hope this National Assembly will not be rubber stamped, because look at our ways and means low. Look at where it has taken.
Well, before it was signed,
right?
It's signed. That's the reporting. It's signed. But before it was signed, did it go through the National Assembly? Was it not supposed to go through the National Assembly before it was signed?
No, I don't think it should go to National Assembly. We have not assessed the money. No, assessing the money is what National Assembly needs to know. The fund is not for only Nigeria; it's for the whole.
Yeah, I
so
get
now
that.
we can all so we just have rights. We are signing so that we can have right to actually assess. So before we assess, it is that when we need to, But I don't know if there's any condition that will say before president will go and borrow, he has to come to National Assembly. But maybe the committee and our DMO, Debt Management Office, need to justify the
And we'll
money.
decide what it will be used for.
Should we collect the money? What should the money be used for? Is it project tied law? I think it's the responsibility of DMO, but DMO is also under the presidency. So these are the challenges. But I think National Assembly should be up and doing, especially this one that is led by Akpabio, because the former person, we see him as much more, have a cordial relationship, but they still have cordial relationship. But you should do your job by scrutinizing and do your oversight function to justify every decision you are making on behalf of the country.
Now, for this issue that was blown beyond proportion, because of course the president has special advisors, who are trained. These are not just political advisors, but also economic advisors who will advise him like, okay, this is what is good for us and this is not what is good for us. Do you think that the president has surrounded himself with people who just tell him what he wants to hear rather than what the nation needs?
I'd rather hold Mr. President more, because if you look at the president of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, they are much more conscious of revenue. If you look at this government, they have been finding every way to actually get revenue. And I think that's a position of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu himself, because he actually wants to do a lot of projects. But if you're doing a lot of projects and you are actually borrowing more, it's not a good one for us. So for me, since we have much more money from revenue, from subsidy removal, I think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should shun.
But there has not been clarity on how much that has been generated from that.
They said they get over 1 trillion from that area. So I think they should make do with the money they have gotten from first subsidy removal, floating of naira, and even we can see that if you look at tariff from even customs, they are much more money. I think they should manage those money very well. We give a moratorium of maybe 2 years before you go back to borrow money. I think that's...
But this government has been talking about cutting costs of governance. How far has it gone with that? Because if we are not seeing drastic measures regarding cutting cost of governance, we will continue to fall into all these need to want to sign agreements.
Nigerian masses are sacrificing more in this government because our purchasing power has been eroded, courtesy of first subsidy removal, and government is getting much more money. You could see in most states, before they used to share 600 billion within states, but now it's over 1 trillion that they are actually sharing.
Was what Bayo Naniga, because I had the opportunity to interview him recently, and that was what his justification for the revenues generated from the removal of fuel subsidy, that okay, these monies, more monies are now going to the state governors, and it was happening on what are the state governors doing.
I think it's not myself and you responsibility. That should be his own boss responsibility.
Boy, he's excusing his boss from that responsibility.
The thing is that, in fact, for me, I would have loved what is called counterpart funding. That okay, federal government is going to buy 500 tractor for you, a state. You should buy 500 from the money you are getting to make it 1,000. If there is something like that and there's a way of accountability. Look at the first money they shared to them. The farmers governor of Niger State used his own money to purchase tractors. If you go to that state now, he's doing a lot of farming. These are what every state should do, but government can take it. And that's why we said we want a policy, economic policy that will resonate with the federal government, state government, and organized private sector. And we have had that even during Obasanjo, where he has need national economic empowerment development strategy. We have needs for the federal government, we have seat for state government, and we have lead for the local government. Until President Bola Ahmed Tinubu come up with such economic policy, that they all have to buy into it. That's when we can move from this economic quagmire.
If not, we'll continue to repeat the same process over and over again.
Because you know why? When they collect that money, they will say, in my own state, my priority is to build house. Some will collect, they say, my own priority is to build airports. Some will collect, my own priority is to build primary health care. The priority will not really... So if government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu want to work on agriculture, they should have its priority that every state should join me to invest in agriculture, and by so doing, telling them that they should invest in agriculture, it would have helped them a whole lot. By the time each state now said, okay, a portion of my income, perhaps maybe 15% of all income from the FAC allocation is going to agriculture. Don't you think that in a year it's going to show in our output as a country? It's going to help our balance of payments and balance of trade. So we must look in that direction. And who will show that direction? It's still Mr. President. So that's why we always tell him that what a blueprint. Because if you look at Mr. President, he's being reactive to policies, to issues. But you have to be proactive. What is your own agenda itself? He has released 1 trillion for palliative. He has released 2 trillion for palliative. He's doing this, doing that. Why are you not actually sitting down and say, okay, we will not go ahead with this palliative again. Let us have an agenda for oil and gas, an agenda for agriculture. If you have a direct economic agenda, let these people key into. So if you are giving them money, I'm giving you money for this. Now he has give a directive now that I'm giving you each state 10 billion for you to purchase CNG buses. That's the kind of directive we want from you. So, but you don't just bring it as palliative. Bring it as fact condition itself. I may look at it that some states might want to go to court, but if you do it, if 25% of states actually key into your policy, it would have helped your economic development, and by next 2 years we'll be happy. And in your next re-election, that would have speak for you, because Nigeria are actually going through challenge of economic issues.
All right, definitely with this clarity over the Samoa agreement, I believe, the federal government has a lot of takeaways that they can actually happen to ensure that more clarity, is given, and more understanding of the impact of these loans will have for the nation and especially the economy. Well, once again, Dr. Aliyu Alias, thank you so much for being with us on the show today. Well, that's the show for today. My name is Morno Balagwugwu. Thank you for watching Politics Now. See you another time.